All right, let's just get right into it. I want you to picture a remote field somewhere in Alabama. It's the middle of the night. There's a man, he's blindfolded, and he has his hand on the shoulder of the guy in front of him. It's some kind of ritual, a ceremony of so-called brotherhood. He's about to be sworn into the Ku Klux Klan. Here's the thing, though. This man, he's no true believer. He's an FBI agent, deep undercover. And this whole ceremony is about to take a really terrifying turn.
So the date is April 21st, 2017. As this blindfolded man is on his knees, repeating an oath to the Klan, a leader just suddenly screams out a warning. If there's any snitches in the group, we kill the snitches. It's a test, right? It's a threat. And it's the first real sign of the kind of mortal danger this agent is walking straight into. I mean, the air is just thick with hate. And he absolutely knows, one wrong move could be his last.
And then, just to hammer the point home, gunshots just ring out in the darkness. Boom, boom, all the new recruits flinch. And the message? Well, it couldn't be clearer. Betrayal means death. For our undercover agent, this isn't just some ceremony anymore. This is a life-or-death performance on what is probably the world's most dangerous stage.
So who is this guy behind the blindfold? He's not the clean-cut G-man you're probably picturing. No, this is Scott Payne, an operative so good at working in America's underbelly, they actually nicknamed him the Hillbilly Donnie Brasco.
Yeah, this slide just shatters the whole stereotype of what a typical FBI agent looks like. Scott Payne is a giant of a man. 6'4", 260 pounds, covered in tattoos. His own colleagues just called him Big Country. He wasn't some slick, suit-wearing agent. He was a self-described redneck. And that authentic, hard-edged persona is exactly what made him the perfect weapon to send into the heart of these extremist groups. He didn't have to act the part. He just had to be a more dangerous version of himself.
So Payne gets into the FBI back in '98, but his real calling, that doesn't show up until 2002. At the FBI's elite undercover school at Quantico. And this place? It's a 2-week sleep-deprived pressure cooker that's designed to break agents. But not Payne. He thrived in it. He was so good at high-pressure role-playing that they immediately recruited him to be an instructor. You know, senior agents saw this raw talent and realized this big country boy could go places absolutely no one else could.
And his first major test? Oh, it was a big one. He'd be infiltrating one of the most violent and insular groups in the entire country, the Outlaws Motorcycle Club. This was an assignment that would push him to his absolute limit, forcing him to build a brotherhood he knew from day one he was destined to destroy.
And this, right here, is the absolute psychological nightmare of deep undercover work. And Payne understood it completely. It's not just about telling lies. It's about earning genuine love and trust from really dangerous people, all while knowing that you will be the instrument of their downfall. Every handshake, every shared drink is just one step closer to that final inevitable betrayal.
So to get inside, Payne becomes this guy Scott Tex Calloway. And his method, it was brilliant. He didn't just create a character out of thin air. He mirrored a real person. This was a key psychological tactic. He ended up bonding with an outlaw named Scott Town. And as you can see, their lives were just eerily similar. They both loved to drink, fight, ride, and lift. They even both had daughters the exact same age. So Payne wasn't just an informant. He became Town's brother. This genuine connection was the key to gaining trust. But man, it also made the betrayal that was coming just excruciating.
But that trust he built, it was constantly being tested. One night, right before a huge sting operation, he gets led into this small back room at the clubhouse. And the order is simple, and it's terrifying. Strip. They're checking him for a wire. The entire operation, and his life, it all hangs on what happens in the next few seconds. This slide really gets into the raw, physiological terror of that moment. Payne describes this massive adrenaline dump. His hearing got all distorted, like he was underwater. It's a phenomenon called auditory exclusion. His vision started fragmenting into what he called screen grabs, which is a form of time dilation. I mean, his own body was betraying him. This wasn't a movie, This was the brutal physical reality of nearly being caught. And here's the crazy part. He was, in fact, wired to the hilt. But he'd cleverly hidden the recording device not on his body, but inside a piece of his clothing. And he watches almost in slow motion as one of the outlaws, a guy he calls a friend, picks up that exact piece of clothing. The biker runs his fingers all over it. He's searching, and he misses it. By a fraction of an inch, Payne lives to fight another day. So after the Outlaws case, Payne was sent after an even more dangerous target. This wasn't some criminal enterprise driven by money. No, This was a whole different beast. This was a group driven by a violent, apocalyptic ideology, the neo-Nazi accelerationist network known as the Base.
So what is the Base? Well, like you see here, they're a neo-Nazi network, and they're aiming for total societal collapse. And they aren't your grandfather's KKK, let me tell you. They're a modern, tech-savvy terror network. Their goal is something called accelerationism, to spark a second civil war through terror attacks. They call this collapse the Boogaloo, and their endgame is to build white ethno-states from the ashes. This is domestic terrorism in its most extreme form.
Infiltrating the base took completely different techniques than the Outlaws did. You see, the Outlaws' vetting was physical and spontaneous, like that strip search. The base, however, was formal and technical. They did digital screenings, coded phone interviews, and used these sophisticated wands to sweep for electronics. In fact, during Payne's very first meeting, they nearly found the FBI tracker on his truck. It was only a quick lie about power line interference that saved his cover.
To prove his loyalty, Payne had to descend completely into their world. He attended what they called a hate camp. Over 3 days, he had to participate as the group stole a goat for a pagan ritual, then decapitated it, and then drank its coagulated blood after taking hits of acid. He watched as they burned American flags and Bibles, screaming death to America. I mean, to catch these monsters, he had to convincingly act like one.
Payne's performance was, well, it was convincing. So convincing, in fact, that he was brought into the inner circle just as the base was finalizing plans for 2 separate, imminent terror attacks, both designed to kickstart their race war.
The intelligence that Payne was getting back was just chilling. The Georgia cell was in the final planning stages of a home invasion to murder an anti-fascist couple. And at the same time, another cell was planning to travel to this massive gun rights rally in Virginia with a simple, horrifying plan. Open fire into the crowd of protesters, police, and militia members, hoping the chaos would ignite their boogaloo.
So it all comes down to the takedown, where the coordination had to be absolutely perfect. Payne was driving with the cell leader Luke Lane. On a pre-planned route, Payne fakes a problem with his truck. As he gets out, a second agent pulls up, creating the perfect distraction. And while the target is focused on their conversation, a SWAT team comes right over the hill. In seconds, the takedown was complete and Payne was extracted without his identity ever being compromised. It was just flawless execution.
With the leaders of the base arrested, the immediate threat was over. But for Scott Payne, the war inside his own head, well, that was just getting started. This final part is all about the immense psychological cost of living a lie and betraying the people who called you a brother.
If we look back at the Outlaws case, Operation Roadkill resulted in 15 arrests. But for Payne, these weren't just targets. They were men he had lived with, ridden with, and fought alongside for over a year. His closest friends in the club? They got sentences of up to 21 years in prison. And this right here, this is the devastating human toll of the job. On the morning of all the arrests, Scott Town, Payne's doppelganger, the man who was like a brother to him, he calls him. Town had heard some rumors about arrests and was calling to warn his friend Tex to be careful. He had no idea at all that his friend was the entire reason for it. The call ended with them telling each other, "I love you."
This just highlights the brutal reality of the job. Less than an hour after that phone call, a SWAT team smashed through Scott Town's door and arrested him based on evidence provided by the man he had just called his brother. The betrayal was, it was absolute.
Scott Payne retired in 2021, and he was honored for his incredible service. But his story leaves us with this huge, profound question. He spent years building fake identities, embracing darkness, and betraying trust, all to protect society. But when the mission is over, and the legend you created just dies, how much of your true self is even left? It's a sacrifice most of us can never, ever truly comprehend.